This security footage shows a pregnant woman falling down marble stairs while someone watches from the shadows. But here's what the police didn't know: her billionaire husband and his mistress had been planning this accident for months. What they didn't count on was Madison Harper's little sister recording everything on social media. This isn't just about betrayal, it's about a woman who thought she could destroy a family and walk away rich. She was dead wrong. By the end of this story, the hunters become the hunted, and karma delivers justice in the most unexpected way. The ring light cast its familiar glow across Madison Harper's face as she adjusted her phone for the morning Instagram story. Behind her, the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Malibu mansion framed the Pacific Ocean like a $1 million painting. At 28, Madison had mastered the art of making privilege look effortless. "Good morning, beautiful souls," she whispered to her 500,000 followers, one hand resting on her 7-month bump. "Baby Sterling is already kicking up a storm today. I think someone's excited about Daddy's big announcement." The announcement: Derek's tech company, Sterling Dynamics, was going public next month. The initial public offering would make them billionaires overnight. Madison should have been thrilled, but something felt off. Derek had been distant lately, claiming stress from the IPO preparations. She ended the story and padded downstairs to their open-concept kitchen, where Derek sat hunched over his laptop, already dressed in his signature black turtleneck. At 35, he still looked like the Stanford computer science prodigy who'd built an empire from his dorm room. "Morning, babe," Madison said, kissing the top of his head. "Coffee's ready." Derek barely looked up. "Thanks. I've got the lawyer coming by at 9 to review final documents." Amber again. Madison tried to keep her voice neutral. Amber Cross had been Derek's business partner and legal counsel for 3 years, but lately, she seemed to be everywhere. "She's the best corporate lawyer in Los Angeles," Derek said, finally meeting Madison's eyes. "This IPO is worth $2 billion. I need the best." Madison nodded, forcing a smile. She'd learned not to question Derek's business decisions. He was the genius who'd revolutionized cloud computing. She was the former lifestyle influencer who'd pivoted to mommy blogging. Their roles were clearly defined. Her phone buzzed with notifications. The pregnancy announcement post from last week had gained another 1,000 likes overnight. The comments were mostly positive, though she'd noticed an uptick in negative ones lately. Trolls questioning whether she was really pregnant, calling her a gold digger, suggesting Derek could do better. "I'm thinking of scaling back the social media stuff," Madison said carefully. "Focus on the baby." Derek looked up sharply. "Your platform is worth millions in brand partnerships. Don't let a few trolls get to you." The doorbell rang, ending their conversation. Through the smart home's camera system, Madison saw Amber Cross standing at their front door, designer briefcase in hand. Even at 9 in the morning, Amber looked like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. Red hair pulled back in a perfect chignon, power suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. "I'll get it," Derek said, jumping up with more energy than he'd shown all morning. Madison watched through the kitchen's open archway as Derek greeted Amber. There was something in the way they stood together, a familiarity that made Madison's stomach clench. Amber's hand lingered on Derek's arm a beat too long. Their eyes held each other's with an intimacy that felt wrong. "Madison," Amber called out, her voice honey-sweet. "You look radiant. Pregnancy suits you." The words were right, but something in Amber's smile felt predatory. Madison had built her career reading people through cameras, understanding what audiences wanted to see. And what she saw in Amber Cross was a woman who took what she wanted. "Thank you," Madison replied, unconsciously placing both hands on her belly. I'll leave you two to your meeting." As she climbed the stairs to their bedroom, Madison heard Derek and Amber's voices drop to whispers. She told herself it was just business, important business that would secure their family's future. But deep down, a voice whispered that nothing about Amber Cross felt safe, and that voice was about to be proven devastatingly right. 3 days later, Madison stood in their walk-in closet, staring at a small gold earring that had fallen behind Derek's shoe rack. She recognized it immediately. Amber had worn them to their gender reveal party last month, the delicate hoops catching the light as she'd mingled with their guests. Madison's hands shook as she picked up the earring. There were innocent explanations. Amber had used their guest bathroom. It could have fallen then. But the guest bathroom was downstairs, and this closet was in their private bedroom suite. "Hey babe, have you seen my laptop charger?" Derek's voice came from the bedroom. Madison quickly pocketed the earring and stepped out. "Kitchen counter, I think." Derek nodded, not really looking at her. These days, he rarely looked at her. When the IPO launched, would he look at her then? Or would success make him even more distant? That afternoon, Madison filmed a sponsored content video for a prenatal vitamin company. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was promoting family wellness while her own family felt like it was fracturing. "Growing a tiny human is the most incredible journey," she told her camera, her influencer smile perfectly practiced. "But it's also scary. You want to do everything right. Protect this little life at all costs." The comments came quickly. Her followers loved these authentic moments, but scattered among the heart emojis and congratulations were darker messages. User Anonymous, Truth 88. "Still think it's fake. Too convenient timing with the IPO." User Reality, "Chekla Derek's too good for this attention seeker." User Corporate Insider, "Hope he signed a prenup." Madison deleted the negative comments, but they kept coming. Someone was clearly running a coordinated attack on her social media presence. But who and why? Her phone rang. Riley, her 25-year-old sister and social media manager. "Mads, we need to talk." Riley's voice was tight with concern. "I've been tracking the negative comments on your posts. They're not random trolls. Someone's paying for this." "What do you mean, bot farms, coordinated harassment campaigns? This is sophisticated stuff, expensive stuff. Someone wants to destroy your online reputation." Madison felt the baby kick, as if responding to her rising stress. "Who would do that?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out. In the meantime, maybe step back from posting for a few days." That evening, Derek came home later than usual, claiming another emergency meeting with the IPO team. Madison waited until he was in the shower before confronting him about the earring. "Derek, we need to talk." He emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, looking annoyed. "Can it wait? I have calls with Tokyo investors in an hour." Madison held up the earring. "I found this in our closet." Derek's face went carefully blank. "Okay. It's Amber's." "Madison, you're being paranoid. She's been here for meetings. It probably fell out when she used the bathroom." "This was in our bedroom closet." "Derek, behind your shoes." Derek's jaw tightened. "Are you seriously accusing me of something? During the most stressful time of my career, when you should be supporting me?" The words hit like a slap. Madison had given up her own career dreams to support his. She'd moved to Los Angeles, away from her family in Portland. She'd transformed herself from an independent influencer into the perfect CEO wife. "I'm not accusing. I'm asking. You're being emotional. It's the pregnancy hormones. You need to trust me." Madison stared at her husband, searching his face for the man she'd fallen in love with. The Derek who'd proposed during a spontaneous trip to Big Sur, who'd cried when she told him about the pregnancy, who'd promised they'd build an empire together. This Derek felt like a stranger. "Maybe you're right," she said quietly, though every instinct screamed otherwise. That night, Derek slept in the guest room, claiming he didn't want to wake her with his early morning calls. Madison lay alone in their king-sized bed, one hand on her belly, feeling more isolated than she'd ever felt in her life. She didn't know that 3 miles away, in Amber's Beverly Hills condo, Derek was telling another woman that Madison was becoming a problem that needed solving, and Amber Cross had very specific ideas about how to solve problems. The attack began subtly, like a digital cancer spreading through Madison's online world. It started with the pregnancy announcement video she'd posted 3 weeks earlier, suddenly gaining traction for all the wrong reasons. Madison discovered it during her morning routine, scrolling through comments while Derek showered. Someone had created a compilation video titled "Fake Pregnancy Exposed Madison Harper's Lies." The video dissected every frame of her announcements, pointing out inconsistencies in her bump size, claiming her morning sickness was performed. Her phone buzzed with a call from Riley. "Mads, don't look at the hashtag trending on Twitter." Too late. Madison had already found it. Hashtag FakeBabyGate was trending number 3 in Los Angeles, with thousands of users sharing the conspiracy video. "This is insane," Madison whispered, scrolling through tweet after tweet questioning her pregnancy. "Who would do this?" "Professional-level character assassination," Riley said grimly. "Someone with serious resources. I've been digging into the bot accounts attacking you. They're all connected to a digital marketing firm that specializes in corporate reputation management. Think about it. Mads, who benefits if you're discredited right before the IPO? The shower turned off. Derek would emerge any moment, and Madison still hadn't decided whether to tell him about the trending hashtag. "I have to go," she told Riley. "But keep digging." Derek emerged from the bathroom, already checking his phone. His face was carefully neutral, but Madison caught something in his expression he already knew. "Bad news travels fast," Madison said, watching his reaction. "It's unfortunate timing," Derek said slowly. "The IPO investors are very concerned about public perception." "Unfortunate timing, Derek. Someone is actively trying to destroy me. This affects our family." Derek's face hardened. "Our family, Madison. Your need for social media attention is what created this mess. Maybe it's time to consider stepping back from the public eye." The words cut deep because Madison realized he meant permanently. She was becoming a liability to his billion-dollar dreams. "This baby is real. Derek, I'm real. We're supposed to be a team. Teams require trust. And right now, your drama is jeopardizing everything I've worked for." The phone rang before Madison could respond. Derek answered immediately. "Amber, thank God. Yes, I saw the trending topic." He walked away, speaking in low tones. Madison caught fragments. "Damage control. Separate her from the business. Whatever it takes." When Derek hung up, his expression was resolved. "Amber's flying back from New York today. We need to do immediate crisis management. The company, this affects Sterling Dynamics' reputation." Madison felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. In Derek's world, she had become the crisis that needed managing. That afternoon, Amber arrived at their house with a crisis management team. Madison watched from the upstairs landing as they spread documents across her dining room table, discussing her like she wasn't a person, but a problem to solve. "The key is separating Derek's brand from the controversy," Amber's voice carried clearly. "Position him as the brilliant entrepreneur unfortunately married to an attention-seeking influencer." Madison's blood ran cold. This wasn't damage control. This was character assassination, orchestrated by the woman her husband trusted most. She tried to retreat to the bedroom, but the baby's position made her clumsy. Her foot caught on the Persian runner, and she stumbled, catching herself on the banister. The conversation downstairs stopped. "Madison," Derek called out, but his tone held irritation, not concern. "I'm fine," she called back, though nothing felt fine anymore. That evening, Derek announced he was flying to New York for emergency investor meetings. "How long?" Madison asked. "However long it takes to fix this mess." The mess. He wasn't talking about the coordinated attack on his wife. He was talking about his wife herself. After Derek left, Madison called Riley. "I need you to investigate Amber Cross. Everything you can find." "Already on it," Riley said. "Mads, I think Derek's involved in this campaign against you." Madison closed her eyes, one hand on her belly. "I know. What are you going to do?" Madison looked around their $1 million home, at the life she'd built with a man who was now treating her like an enemy. "I'm going to fight back." But she had no idea how powerful her enemies really were, or how far they were willing to go to remove her from Derek's $1 billion future. The war for her life was just beginning. Amber Cross stood in Derek's Manhattan hotel suite, watching him pace between the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. 3 days in New York had salvaged most of the investor meetings, but Derek looked haggard, torn between his business ambitions and whatever remained of his conscience. "The pregnancy conspiracy is dying down," Amber reported, scrolling through social media analytics on her tablet. "But Madison's still posting. She did a live stream yesterday talking about standing strong against lies. It got 500,000 views." Derek stopped pacing. "She's not going to back down voluntarily." "No, she's not." Amber set down her tablet and moved closer. "Derek, we need to discuss long-term strategy. The IPO is just the beginning. Sterling Dynamics could expand globally, become a $50 billion company, but not with Madison as a liability." Derek's jaw tightened. "She's my wife, the mother of my child." "Is she, though?" Amber's voice dropped to a whisper. "Really think about it. The timing of this pregnancy announcement, right before your biggest business triumph, the social media presence that brings nothing but drama. She trapped you. Derek." The words hit their target. Derek had been questioning everything since the fake pregnancy conspiracy emerged. Madison's bump did seem smaller some days. Her morning sickness had been mild, and she was always performing, always filming, always making their private life public. "Even if that's true," Derek said slowly, "divorce would be messy, expensive." Amber moved behind him, her hands resting on his shoulders. "What if it didn't have to be?" Derek turned to face her. In the golden light of the Manhattan sunset, Amber looked like everything Madison wasn't: sophisticated, focused, driven by ambition rather than attention. A true partner in building an empire. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that sometimes problems solve themselves. Madison's already stressed, emotional, unstable. Pregnancy can make women do unpredictable things." Derek stared at her. "Amber, what exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying that if something tragic happened, something that clearly wasn't your fault, you'd be free to build the life you deserve, the company you deserve." The hotel room fell silent except for the distant hum of New York traffic 40 floors below. "That's monstrous," Derek whispered. "That's business," Amber replied calmly. "And you've never let emotions interfere with good business decisions before." That night, Derek called Madison from his hotel room. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright with relief. "Derek, Thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. Sorry. Back-to-back meetings. How are you feeling? Better. Actually, Riley's been investigating the social media attacks. We think we've traced them to a marketing firm that specializes in corporate warfare. We're going to expose whoever's behind this. Derek's blood chilled. Riley Harper was smarter than he'd given her credit for. If she kept digging, she might uncover Amber's digital manipulation campaign. Madison, maybe you should let this go. Focus on the baby. Let it go, Derek. Someone tried to destroy my reputation. Our family's reputation. Our family will be fine once the IPO completes. Can't you just trust me to handle this? There was a pause. Trust you, like I trusted you about Amber's earring in our closet. Derek felt trapped. We've been over this. You're being paranoid. Am I because Riley found something interesting in Amber's background? Did you know she was married before her husband died in a tragic accident? Fell down the stairs in their home. The phone nearly slipped from Derek's hands. Madison, you're spiraling. This conspiracy thinking isn't healthy for you or the baby. It's not conspiracy thinking if it's true. Derek closed his eyes. Madison was getting too close to dangerous territory. I'm flying home tomorrow. We'll discuss this in person. Good, because we have a lot to discuss. After Derek hung up, he called Amber. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Riley Harper is investigating you, and Madison knows about your first husband. Amber's laugh was cold and sharp. David's death was ruled accidental. Poor man was drunk. Fell down the stairs of our Aspen house. Tragic. But these things happen. Madison doesn't believe in coincidences. Then maybe it's time Madison had her own tragic accident, Amber said quietly, before she ruins everything we've worked for. Derek stared out at the glittering Manhattan skyline, at the city where dreams and nightmares were built with equal ambition. I need time to think. Time is a luxury we don't have. Derek, Riley Harper gets closer to the truth every day. Madison gets more suspicious every day. And the IPO launches in 2 weeks. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that grieving widowers make very sympathetic figures to investors. And tragic accidents happen every day in those big empty houses with dangerous staircases. Derek closed his eyes. 6 months ago, he'd been a successful entrepreneur married to a loving wife. Now he was discussing murder with his business partner. But $50 billion was a powerful motivator. And Amber Cross was very good at making problems disappear. Madison felt a surge of hope as Derek's Tesla pulled into their circular driveway. 4 days apart had given her time to think, to plan, to remember who she was before she became Derek Sterling's wife. She was Madison Harper, the girl who'd built a social media empire from her Portland bedroom. She'd survived before Derek, and she could survive whatever was coming. She met him at the door, her hands instinctively resting on her 8-month bump. The baby had been active all day, as if sensing the tension in her body. Welcome home, she said carefully. Derek looked exhausted, older somehow. The stress of the IPO was showing in the lines around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. It's good to be back. He kissed her forehead, a gesture that felt both familiar and foreign. How are you feeling? Better, stronger. She led him into the living room, where she'd prepared her evidence. Riley's been amazing. We've uncovered so much about the attacks on my social media. Derek's face went carefully neutral. Madison, we need to talk. Yes, we do. She picked up Riley's printed research. The bot network attacking me. It's connected to Prestige Digital Marketing. And guess who's their biggest client? Derek sat down heavily on their white leather sofa. Who? Amber Cross. She's been paying them to destroy my reputation. Derek, your business partner, has been systematically trying to ruin me. She watched Derek's face for shock, anger, betrayal. Instead, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Resignation. You knew, she whispered. Derek ran his hands through his hair. Madison, it's complicated. Complicated, your business partner is destroying your wife's reputation, and it's complicated. The IPO is worth $2 billion. Your social media drama was affecting investor confidence. Madison felt like she'd been physically struck. My social media drama, Derek. I was being attacked. I'm the victim here. Are you? Derek's voice was quiet, almost clinical. Or are you someone who's been performing our entire relationship for content? The words hung in the air like poison. Madison stared at her husband, the father of her unborn child, and saw a stranger. Is that really what you think of me? Derek met her eyes. I think you're a brilliant influencer who saw an opportunity with a successful tech entrepreneur. The pregnancy announcement timing, right before the IPO, the constant documentation of our private life. It's all very convenient. Madison's hands went to her belly protectively. This baby is your child. Derek, our child. I know that, but I also know that you've made our entire relationship into performance art, and now that performance is threatening everything I've built. Everything you've built. What about everything we've built? Derek stood up, pacing to the window. We built a social media brand. Madison, I built a company that's about to change the world. And Amber helped you see that distinction. Derek's silence was answer enough. Madison felt something crack inside her chest, not her heart, that had been breaking slowly for months. This was deeper, the foundation of her reality crumbling. So what happens now? She asked quietly. Derek turned back to her, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of the man she'd fallen in love with. Now we figure out how to move forward. The IPO launches in 10 days. After that, things will be different. Different how? I don't know yet. But Madison, you have to stop investigating Amber. You have to stop posting about attacks and conspiracies. For the sake of our family. Our family. The words should have been comforting, but something in Derek's tone made them sound like a threat. And if I don't, Derek's face hardened, then you'll force me to make choices I don't want to make. That night, Derek suggested they take a baby moon before the IPO chaos intensified. Hawaii, he said over dinner. Just us, before everything changes. For a moment, Madison felt a spark of hope. Maybe they could salvage this. Maybe away from Amber's influence, away from the pressure. They could remember why they'd fallen in love. That sounds perfect, she said. Derek smiled, and it almost reached his eyes. I'll have Amber book it. She knows the best resorts. Of course Amber would book it. Amber was apparently orchestrating every aspect of their lives now, but Madison was done being a passive victim. While Derek was on a conference call, she texted Riley, "Keep digging into Amber's past, especially the dead husband. I'm going to Hawaii with Derek, but something feels wrong." Riley's response was immediate. "Mads, be careful. I found more info about David Cross's death. The insurance payout was massive, and there were questions about the accident scene." Madison stared at the text, ice forming in her veins. What kind of questions? The kind that suggest it wasn't an accident. Madison looked up to find Derek watching her from the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Ready for paradise?" he asked. But as Madison looked into her husband's eyes, she realized paradise might be the most dangerous place she could go. The Four Seasons Maui gleamed like a jewel against the Pacific, all glass and luxury perched on volcanic cliffs. Madison should have felt peaceful as their private car wound through the resort's palm-lined entrance. But every instinct screamed danger. Derek was being too perfect, too attentive. He'd held her hand during the entire flight, ordered her favorite sushi from the plane's menu, even took a selfie of them that he posted to his rarely used Instagram. The caption read, "Baby moon with my beautiful wife. Some things matter more than business." The comments were overwhelmingly positive, but Madison noticed how quickly the negative bots that had plagued her posts had vanished, as if someone had simply turned off the attack. Their oceanfront suite was stunning, with a private infinity pool and unobstructed views of the Pacific. Derek had even arranged for pregnancy-safe spa treatments and prenatal yoga on the beach. "This is incredible," Madison said, genuinely moved despite her suspicions. "Thank you." Derek pulled her close, his hand resting on her bump. "You deserve this. We deserve this." For the first 2 days, it felt like old times. They talked for hours on their private terrace, sharing dreams about their future child. Derek seemed genuinely excited about fatherhood, asking about nursery themes and debating baby names. "Leo," Madison suggested. "It means lion, strong and brave." "Leo Sterling," Derek repeated thoughtfully. "I like it." They made love for the first time in months, gentle and careful of her pregnant body. Afterward, as Derek slept beside her, Madison allowed herself to hope that maybe they could salvage their marriage after all. But on the third day, Derek's behavior shifted. He started taking long phone calls, claiming they were routine check-ins with the IPO team, but Madison caught fragments of conversation that sounded wrong. "No, she's not suspicious anymore. The timing has to be perfect. Make sure the story is airtight." When Madison asked about the calls, Derek claimed they were discussing investor presentations, but his eyes wouldn't meet hers. That evening, they had dinner at the resort's clifftop restaurant. The setting was impossibly romantic, candlelit tables overlooking the ocean, the sound of waves crashing below. Other couples around them looked blissfully happy, lost in their own perfect moments. "To new beginnings," Derek said, raising his sparkling water in a toast. Madison clinked her glass against his, but something in his expression made her stomach clench. "New beginnings. After the IPO, everything changes. We'll have more money than we know what to do with. We can travel the world, give our child everything." "That sounds wonderful," Madison said carefully, "but I hope we don't lose ourselves in all that success." Derek's smile flickered. "What do you mean?" "I mean us, our marriage. The simple things that made us happy before all the money and pressure." "Money isn't the enemy, Madison, it's freedom." "Freedom from what?" Derek set down his glass, his expression growing serious. "Freedom from having to compromise. From having to consider other people's opinions about our choices." There was something in his tone that made Madison's blood chill. "Other people, like who? Like your sister, for instance, always questioning my motives, investigating my business partners." Madison felt the familiar protective instinct rise. "Riley's just looking out for me." Is she trying to drive a wedge between us? The accusation hung in the air between them. Madison realized this wasn't just dinner conversation. This was Derek testing her loyalty, forcing her to choose between him and the one person who'd been trying to protect her. "Riley loves me," Madison said quietly. "She wants me to be happy. And I don't..." The question felt like a trap. Whatever she answered would be wrong. "Of course you do," Madison said finally. "But happiness doesn't require choosing between the people I love." Derek's expression darkened. "Sometimes it does." That night, Madison couldn't sleep. She stood on their suite's balcony, listening to the waves crash against the cliffs below. The sound was hypnotic, but somehow ominous, like nature itself was warning her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Riley. "Mads, I found something huge about Amber. David Cross didn't just fall downstairs, he was pushed. Witness saw Amber at the top, but she was never charged. The witness disappeared before trial." Madison's hands shook as she typed back, "Are you sure? Dead sure. And Mads, there's more. Amber's been researching your house's layout online. She's accessed the architectural plans through some real estate connection." Madison felt sick. "Why would she need our house plans? I don't know. But you need to be careful. I think this Hawaii trip might be..." The balcony door slid open behind her. Derek emerged, rubbing his eyes. "Can't sleep?" he asked. Madison quickly deleted Riley's message thread. "Just restless. The baby's been kicking." Derek moved behind her, his arms encircling her waist. To anyone watching from the beach below, they probably looked like a loving couple sharing a romantic moment. But Madison felt like prey being held by a predator. "Tomorrow's our last day," Derek said, his breath warm against her ear. "We should make it memorable." The words should have been romantic. Instead, they sounded like a threat. As Derek led her back inside, Madison caught her reflection in the sliding door's glass. She looked small, vulnerable, completely alone despite being in her husband's arms. Tomorrow would indeed be memorable. She just hoped she'd survive it. Madison woke to an empty bed and the sound of Derek's voice on the phone in the suite's living room. She checked the time 6:30 in the morning, which meant it was 9:30 in Los Angeles. Early for a casual call. She crept to the bedroom door, listening. "No, she doesn't suspect anything," Derek was saying. "The plan is still on for today." Madison's blood turned to ice. She pressed closer to the door. "The hiking trail you suggested is perfect. Remote, dangerous terrain. Accidents happen there all the time." A pause. "Yes, Amber. I understand what's at stake." Amber. Of course she was orchestrating this from 3,000 miles away. "The story is simple," Derek continued. Pregnant wife gets dizzy on clifftop trail. Tragic fall. Devastated husband inherits everything. Becomes sympathetic figure for IPO launch. Madison clapped a hand over her mouth to keep from gasping. They were planning to kill her. Today. "I know it has to look accidental," Derek said. "That's why the location is crucial. Witnesses need to see me trying to save her, not push her." Madison's legs nearly gave out. This was really happening. Her husband, the father of her unborn child, was planning her murder. She crept back to bed, forcing her breathing to steady as Derek finished his call. When he returned to the bedroom, she pretended to be waking up. "Morning, beautiful," Derek said, kissing her forehead. "I have a surprise for you." Madison forced a smile. "What kind of surprise?" "A private hiking tour. I found this amazing trail that leads to a hidden waterfall. Just us. Incredible views. And a chance to connect with nature before Leo arrives." Leo. He was using their unborn son's name while planning to kill them both. "That sounds wonderful," Madison managed. "When do we leave?" "After breakfast. The guide recommends starting early, before it gets too hot." Madison nodded, her mind racing. She needed to get word to Riley, needed to leave some kind of evidence. But Derek was watching her too closely. During breakfast on their private terrace, Madison excused herself to use the bathroom. She quickly typed a message to Riley. "Derek planning something on hiking trail today? If something happens to me, he did it. Amber involved. I love you." Before she could send it, Derek knocked on the bathroom door. "Madison, you okay in there?" She deleted the message and flushed the toilet. Coming, when she emerged, Derek was holding her phone. "You forgot this on the table," he said casually, but Madison noticed he'd been looking at the screen. "Thanks," she said, taking it back. The phone was locked, but Derek was tech-savvy enough to bypass basic security if he wanted to. An hour later, they met their hiking guide in the resort lobby. Jake was a local Hawaiian man in his 50s, with kind eyes and the weathered look of someone who'd spent his life outdoors. "The Maui Ridge Trail is one of our most beautiful," Jake explained as they drove toward the trailhead, "but also one of our most challenging. The cliff views are spectacular, but you have to be very careful, especially in your condition, Mrs. Sterling." "I'll take good care of her," Derek said, his hand possessively on Madison's knee. The trailhead was remote, accessible only by a winding dirt road. Madison noticed there were no other cars in the small parking area. Derek had chosen well for privacy. "The trail is about 3 miles, Jake explained, shouldering his pack. "We'll take it slow, with plenty of rest stops." They started hiking through dense tropical forest, the path winding upward through ferns and flowering trees. Madison tried to stay alert, but the pregnancy made her slower, more breathless. Derek stayed close, ostensibly being supportive, but she felt his presence like a weight. After an hour, they emerged onto a ridge with stunning views of the valley below. The trail here was narrow, with a sheer drop-off on one side and steep rock wall on the other. "This is where we need to be extra careful," Jake warned. "Stay toward the inside of the trail." Madison nodded, but Derek moved to walk between her and the cliff edge. To Jake, it probably looked protective. To Madison, it felt like positioning. "Jake," Derek said casually, "could you scout ahead for the best photo spot Madison and I want to capture this moment?" Jake nodded and continued up the trail, disappearing around a bend. They were alone. Derek turned to Madison, and for a moment, she saw the man she'd married. The uncertainty in his eyes, the war between ambition and conscience. "Madison," he said quietly, "I want you to know that I did love you. Part of me still does." The past tense sent chills through her. "Derek, what are you doing?" "What I have to do. For the company. For our future." "Our future, Derek. I'm carrying your child." Derek's face hardened. "Amber's right. You've been performing our entire relationship. The pregnancy timing. The social media presence. All of it. You saw an opportunity, and you took it. That's not true, and you know it. Do I? Because I've been thinking about it, and nothing about us feels real anymore." Madison backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The cliff edge was behind her, Derek in front. "This is real," she said desperately, taking his hand and placing it on her belly. "Your son is real. He's kicking right now. Can you feel him?" For a moment, Derek's expression softened. The baby was indeed moving, as if responding to the tension. "I can feel him," Derek whispered. "Then you know this is wrong. You know Amber is manipulating you." Derek's eyes hardened again. "Amber understands what it takes to build an empire. You understand what it takes to build a social media following. I understand what it takes to build a family, a real family, not a corporate structure. Families are a luxury I can't afford right now." Derek stepped closer, and Madison realized this was it, the moment he'd been building toward. "Jake will find you at the bottom of the cliff," Derek said quietly. "Tragic accident. Pregnant wife loses her footing on dangerous terrain. He'll testify that I tried to save you, that I was devastated, Derek, please, think about Leo. Think about the man you used to be. The man I used to be was weak, sentimental. That man would never have built $1 billion company. Derek raised his hands toward her shoulders, and Madison realized she had one chance. She screamed. The sound echoed across the valley, primal and desperate. In the distance, she heard Jake shout back. Derek's face went white. Madison, don't help, she screamed again. Someone help me. Derek lunged forward, trying to cover her mouth, but Madison twisted away. Her foot slipped on the loose gravel at the trail's edge. For a terrifying moment, she teetered on the precipice, arms windmilling, Derek reaching for her with an expression of genuine panic. Then Jake rounded the bend, running toward them. What happened? Jake shouted. She slipped, Derek said quickly. I was trying to catch her. Madison grabbed onto a scrub brush growing from the cliff face, her legs dangling over empty air. The baby kicked frantically inside her, as if he too sensed the danger. Help me, she gasped. Jake and Derek both reached for her, pulling her back onto solid ground. She collapsed onto the trail, sobbing with relief and terror. We need to get you to a hospital, Jake said. That was too close. Yes, Derek agreed, his voice shaking. Much too close. But as they helped Madison to her feet, she saw the calculation already returning to Derek's eyes. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning. Back at the resort, Madison sat in their suite's bathroom with her phone, finally alone while Derek spoke with hotel management about their hiking accident. Her hands shook as she typed a message to Riley. Derek tried to kill me today. On hiking trail. I need help. Riley's response came immediately. OMG, are you okay? I'm calling police. No police yet. Need evidence. But Mads, I found something huge. Amber's in Maui. She flew in yesterday under a fake name. She's at a resort 20 miles from you. Madison's blood turned to ice. Amber was here. This wasn't just Derek acting alone. This was a coordinated plan. I have photos of her at the airport, Riley continued. And Mads, the hiking guide you used today, he's not a real guide. He's an actor Amber hired. Real Jake Morrison is in the hospital with food poisoning. Madison felt sick. Even their witness was part of the setup. If Derek had succeeded in pushing her off that cliff, the fake Jake would have testified that it was a tragic accident. A knock on the bathroom door made her jump. Madison, you've been in there a while. Are you okay? She quickly deleted the message thread and flushed the toilet. Just feeling nauseous. The baby didn't like all that excitement. When she emerged, Derek was watching her with concern that might have been genuine. Maybe we should fly home early, he suggested. Get you checked out by your doctor. That's probably a good idea. Derek pulled out his phone. I'll have Amber arrange the jet for tomorrow morning. Of course he would. Amber, who was currently 20 miles away, probably planning their next accident. That evening, Derek suggested room service instead of going to the restaurant. You need rest, he said. The stress today wasn't good for either of you. Madison agreed, grateful for any delay in whatever they had planned next. But when the food arrived, she noticed Derek encouraging her to eat the fish while he stuck to chicken. The Ono is amazing here, he said. You should try it. Madison took a small bite, but something felt wrong. The taste was off, slightly bitter. When Derek went to the bathroom, she spit the fish into her napkin and hid it. Within an hour, she was violently ill. Not normal pregnancy nausea, this was something else. Food poisoning, or worse. We need to get you to a hospital, Derek said, but Madison caught something in his eyes. This wasn't surprise. This was expectation. No, Madison managed between waves of nausea. I just need to rest. Madison, you could be seriously ill. Think about the baby. The baby. As if Derek cared about Leo's welfare after trying to murder them both that afternoon. Madison locked herself in the bathroom and called Riley. They're trying to poison me now, she whispered. I need help. I'm on the next flight to Maui. Riley said immediately. But Mads, listen carefully. I've been working with a journalist who specializes in corporate crime. We think Derek and Amber have done this before. What do you mean Amber's first husband wasn't her first victim? There were 2 other wealthy men she dated who died in accidents, and Derek's been moving money offshore for months, setting up accounts that Madison Sterling can't access. Madison's vision blurred, whether from the poison or the revelation. How long have they been planning this? Since before your pregnancy announcement. Maybe since before your pregnancy, period. The bathroom door handle turned. Madison, I'm worried about you. I'm calling an ambulance. Don't call anyone, Madison said through the door. I'm feeling better. But she wasn't feeling better. She was feeling worse by the minute, and Derek's insistence on getting her to a hospital now made sense. Amber probably had doctors on payroll, people who could ensure Madison and her baby didn't survive their food poisoning. Madison forced herself to think clearly despite the nausea. She needed to get off this island, away from Derek's control, but not on his private jet where anything could happen at 30,000 feet. She opened the bathroom door to find Derek waiting with his phone in hand. I already called for medical transport, he said. They'll be here in 20 minutes. I don't want to go to the hospital. Derek's face hardened. You don't have a choice. You're sick, and you're carrying my child. I'm making the medical decisions here. The words sent chills through Madison. Once she was in a hospital under Derek's control, with Amber pulling strings from the shadows, she'd be completely helpless. Fine, she said quietly. Let me just pack a few things. Derek nodded, satisfied. He thought he'd won. Madison went to their bedroom and quickly gathered her essentials. But more importantly, she palmed the piece of fish she'd hidden earlier. If she could get it tested, it would prove they'd tried to poison her. As sirens wailed in the distance, Madison made a desperate decision. She couldn't go to that hospital. She couldn't trust Derek's medical transport. She had to run. While Derek was checking his phone in the living room, Madison slipped out the suite's balcony door. They were on the ground floor, with direct access to the beach. The resort's grounds were sprawling, full of tropical gardens and shadowy pathways. Madison moved as quickly as her pregnant body would allow, staying in the shadows, heading for the main lobby. Behind her, she heard Derek's voice calling her name, growing more frantic. She reached the lobby just as the medical transport team was arriving. In the confusion, she slipped past them and found a taxi in the circular drive. Airport, she told the driver. Emergency. As they pulled away, Madison saw Derek burst through the lobby doors, his face twisted with rage when he realized she was gone. Madison's phone rang immediately. Derek's number. She answered on the 3rd ring. Madison, what the hell are you doing? Staying alive, she said simply. You're sick. You need medical attention. I need to get away from you. There was a long pause. When Derek spoke again, his voice was different, colder. Madison, you're making a very big mistake. Come back to the hotel. We can work this out. Like we worked out the hiking trail, like we worked out dinner. I don't know what you think happened, but you're being paranoid. The pregnancy is affecting your judgment. Madison almost laughed. Even now, caught in his lies, Derek was gaslighting her. I know about Amber being in Maui. Derek. I know about the fake hiking guide. I know about everything. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "You can't prove anything." "Watch me." Madison hung up and immediately called Riley. "I'm heading to the airport. Meet me in Los Angeles. And Riley, bring everything you found about Amber. Every piece of evidence." "Already packed. Mads, be careful. If they're willing to kill you in Hawaii, they won't hesitate to try again in LA." Madison looked back at the resort's glittering lights receding in the distance. Somewhere in that paradise, her husband and his mistress were planning their next move. But Madison was done being a victim. It was time to fight back. Madison's flight touched down at LAX at 6 in the morning, and Riley was waiting at the gate with a thick folder of evidence and eyes red from sleepless nights of investigation. "Thank God you're okay," Riley said, hugging her sister carefully. "How are you feeling?" "Angry," Madison replied. And it was true. The fear was still there, but it had crystallized into something harder, more focused, and ready to destroy them. They drove to Riley's apartment in Silver Lake, a tech-savvy haven where Riley had set up what looked like a war room. Multiple monitors displayed social media analytics, financial records, and background checks. The walls were covered with printouts connected by red string like a conspiracy theorist's dream. "This is incredible work," Madison said, settling onto the couch. "I've barely slept since you left for Hawaii. Look at this." Riley pointed to a timeline on her largest monitor. "Amber Cross has been systematically targeting wealthy men for 7 years. 3 dead husbands and fiancés, all ruled accidental deaths, all with massive insurance payouts." Madison studied the photos of Amber's victims. They all had the same look, successful, ambitious men who'd been completely fooled by Amber's act. "And Derek. Derek's been moving assets offshore for 6 months. If you died in Hawaii, he'd have inherited everything clean, with no way for anyone to trace where the money went afterward. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a calculated business plan. But here's the thing," Riley continued, excitement building in her voice. "They got arrogant. All those encrypted messages, offshore accounts, digital footprints they left a trail, and I've been documenting everything." Riley pulled up a secure folder containing hundreds of screenshots, financial records, and digital communications. "Amber's been careless with her digital security. I found her real messaging apps, her financial records, even recordings she made of conversations with Derek. Recordings. She was keeping insurance, probably in case Derek tried to double-cross her. Listen to this." Riley played an audio file. Derek's voice came through clearly. "Madison has to die before the IPO. Make it look like pregnancy complications or an accident. I can't have her questioning the business anymore." Amber's voice responded, "David's staircase fall worked perfectly. No one questioned grieving widow with insurance money. We can adapt that for Madison." Madison felt sick hearing her husband discuss her murder so casually, but also vindicated. This was proof. "There's more," Riley said. "I've been in contact with a journalist at the Los Angeles Times. Sarah Chen, she specializes in corporate crime, and she's been tracking Amber for 2 years." Madison's phone buzzed. Derek calling again. She'd been ignoring his calls since landing, but his messages were getting increasingly desperate. "I should answer," Madison said. "Keep him talking while you record." Riley quickly set up recording equipment as Madison answered the call. "Madison, thank God. Where are you? I've been worried sick. Have you been worried that I escaped your murder plot?" A pause. "Madison, you're not thinking clearly. The stress, the pregnancy, you're having some kind of breakdown. Am I then explain why Amber Cross was in Maui yesterday under a fake name?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Riley held up a photo of Amber at the Maui airport with a timestamp from yesterday. I have photos, Derek. I have her flight records. I know about the fake hiking guide. Madison, come home. We can work this out. I love you. You love me. You tried to push me off a cliff. I saved you from falling off a cliff. That guide was incompetent. I'm filing a lawsuit against the resort. Even caught red-handed, Derek was spinning lies, but his voice had an edge of panic now. I know about your offshore accounts too, Madison continued, and the insurance policy you took out on me last month. Dead silence. Derek still there. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder, the mask finally dropping. Madison, you need to be very careful about the accusations you're making. I have lawyers who can destroy you in court. I have resources you can't imagine. And I have evidence you can't explain away. Evidence of what? A successful businessman protecting his assets, a husband trying to save his unstable wife from a hiking accident. Evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. Derek laughed, but it sounded forced. Good luck proving that. It's the word of a paranoid pregnant woman against a respected CEO launching a billion-dollar IPO. We'll see about that. Madison hung up and looked at Riley. How much of that did you get? All of it. And Madison, it gets better. While you were on the phone, I got a message from Sarah Chen. The FBI has been building a case against Amber for months. They just needed someone on the inside willing to testify. The FBI. Amber's not just a serial killer. She's been running a corporate manipulation scheme, targeting successful men, destroying their wives, inheriting their companies. It's racketeering on a massive scale. Madison felt a surge of hope mixed with vindication. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't paranoid. She was the victim of a sophisticated criminal enterprise. What do we do now? Riley smiled grimly. Now we go public. I've been preparing a social media campaign that will expose everything, complete with evidence, recordings, financial documents. We're going to destroy them the same way they tried to destroy you through digital warfare. But Derek has lawyers, resources, and we have the truth. Plus, I've learned a few things about going viral. By tonight, #JusticeForMadison will be trending worldwide. Madison looked at the evidence spread across Riley's apartment, at the digital war room that would bring down her husband and his murderous mistress. For the first time in months, she felt powerful. The victims were about to become the victors. The story broke at exactly 9 a.m. Pacific time, when peak social media engagement would ensure maximum viral spread. Riley had orchestrated the release like a military campaign, coordinating with Sarah Chen at the Los Angeles Times, FBI sources, and a network of influencers who'd agreed to amplify the story. The headline read, "Tech billionaire and lawyer plotted to murder pregnant wife for IPO millions, exclusive audio and evidence." Within an hour, Justice for Madison was trending #1 worldwide. Madison watched from Riley's apartment as her story exploded across every platform. The audio recordings of Derek and Amber planning her murder played on news channels. Financial experts analyzed the offshore accounts. Legal commentators discussed the evidence of Amber's previous victims. But the most powerful moment came when Madison herself went live on Instagram to her followers. 6 months ago, I thought I was living a fairy tale, she began, her hand resting on her 9-month bump. I was married to a successful entrepreneur, pregnant with our first child, living in a beautiful home. I thought the attacks on my social media were just trolls. I had no idea my own husband was paying for them. The live stream quickly grew to over 2 million viewers as news outlets picked up the feed. Derek Sterling and Amber Cross didn't just try to destroy my reputation, they tried to destroy my life. Literally. They poisoned my food in Hawaii and tried to push me off a cliff, Also, Derek could inherit my assets and launch his IPO as a sympathetic widower. Comments flooded in, thousands of people expressing outrage and support. But Madison also noticed something else, other women coming forward with their own stories of Amber Cross. She dated my ex-husband before me. One comment read, he said she was obsessed with successful men and their money. I knew David Cross, Amber's first husband. Read another. He was terrified of her in the weeks before he died. The evidence was building in real time, crowdsourced by an army of internet investigators who'd been galvanized by Madison's story. At noon, Derek's company issued a statement denying all allegations and threatening legal action against malicious and defamatory claims. But it was too late. Sterling Dynamics' stock price was already plummeting in pre-market trading. The IPO had been indefinitely postponed. At 2 p.m., Amber Cross was arrested at LAX trying to board a flight to Switzerland. The FBI had been monitoring her movements since Riley first contacted them. Photos of Amber in handcuffs, her designer clothes and perfect composure finally cracked, went viral within minutes. Derek held out until evening. He tried one last desperate gambit, a press conference claiming Madison was mentally unstable, that he was the real victim of a vindictive wife trying to destroy his company. But Riley had saved the best evidence for last. As Derek spoke to reporters outside his office building, Riley released security footage from their Malibu home. It showed Derek and Amber in intimate conversation in his study, planning Madison's accident in explicit detail. It showed Amber researching the layout of their house's staircase on her laptop. It showed Derek practicing how he would discover Madison's body. The footage played on every news channel simultaneously. Derek's press conference devolved into chaos as reporters shouted questions about the evidence. His lawyers tried to pull him away from the microphones, but the damage was done. Derek Sterling was arrested that night on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and racketeering. The FBI raided his offices and froze his assets. The man who'd been worth $2 billion on paper was suddenly worth nothing. Madison watched the arrest from her hospital bed, where she'd been admitted for observation due to the stress of the last week. The baby Leo was due any day, and her doctor wanted to monitor them both carefully. "How do you feel?" Riley asked, sitting beside the bed. Madison considered the question. 6 months ago, she'd been Mrs. Derek Sterling, living a picture-perfect life built on lies. Now she was Madison Harper again, pregnant and alone, but finally free. "Relieved," she said finally, "and grateful. Grateful. To be alive, to be having this baby, to have a sister who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself." Riley squeezed her hand. "What's next?" Madison looked out the hospital window at the Los Angeles skyline. Somewhere out there, Derek was sitting in a jail cell, finally facing consequences for his actions. Amber Cross was in federal custody, her long career of manipulation and murder finally over. "Now I focus on Leo," Madison said, "and on building something real, something that can't be bought or manipulated or stolen." 2 days later, Madison went into labor. Leo Sterling Harper, she'd dropped the Sterling name, legally was born, healthy and perfect, weighing 7 pounds and screaming with the indignation of someone who'd had a very dramatic entrance into the world. As Madison held her son for the first time, she thought about the future. The Netflix deal for her story was already in negotiation. The book rights would provide financial security. The foundation she planned to start for domestic abuse victims would give her purpose. But mostly, she thought about the little boy in her arms, who would grow up knowing his mother had fought for him before he was even born. 6 months later, Derek Sterling was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Amber Cross received life without parole for multiple murders. The Sterling Dynamics IPO became a cautionary tale taught in business schools. And Madison Harper, survivor and mother, used her platform to help other women recognize the signs of manipulation and abuse. Her story had gone viral for all the right reasons because sometimes, against all odds, justice actually wins. Leo's first word was mama. His second was strong. Madison couldn't have asked for anything more. Madison's fight for survival shocked millions and brought down $1 billion empire. But her story raises a crucial question. How many red flags did you spot that she missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and share it with someone who loves real-life drama. And hey, if you're new here, hit subscribe because, trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. These stories get crazier every week.